Hello and welcome back to my FPL channel. I am FPL D Unit and today you're here for a special edition preview ahead of double game week 25. We now have it confirmed what it is going to be after the Carabao Cup second leg semi-finals have been played on Tuesday and Wednesday this weekend. Actually, Wednesday and Thursday. I lie. I get confused because I'm obviously they're on different days in Australia, but based in the UK. And what that means for your teams. We do now have to start thinking about blank game week 29 as well. It's 4 game weeks away after this, and we now know which 4 teams are going to be blanking. It's going to be Liverpool, it's going to be Aston Villa, it's going to be Newcastle, and Crystal Palace. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. Before we do that, can you please take the time to smash a like on the video and please press the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. I've gone over 500 subscribers now. Please, let's get to the next milestone of 1,000. And without further ado, let's jump into what happened in the Carabao Cup semi-finals. So, first leg, Arsenal lost 2-0 at home. And the second leg went no better for the Gunners. Unlucky for them, they will be going probably without silverware yet again this season. Ironically, Man United, my team, have been rubbish, but Newcastle now have a chance to actually add a trophy to their cabinet, and they haven't won one in a very, very long time, which may impact on the players up until that final. And if they win, it potentially there could be some sort of hangover afterwards as well. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think Newcastle are a good enough team to not let them affect them too much. So yeah, Newcastle United win 4-0 in aggregate. They are through to the Carabao Cup final, which means Arsenal and Chelsea, that fixture that was in game week 29 will now still be played in game week 29. And as I said, Crystal Palace and Newcastle will be blanking then instead. We don't know when they're going to be playing that catch-up fixture as of this moment in time. First leg in the Tottenham versus Liverpool game was 1-0 to the Spurs. And then we all kind of hoped that Spurs would beat Liverpool because we really wanted a choice out of Marco Silva and Ange Postecoglou for the assistant managership in game week 25 and the double there. But alas, Liverpool were far too good for what was a very average Spurs-looking team. They won 4-0 at home. Spurs made them look like world beaters, and Liverpool won the tie 4-1 on aggregate. So what does it all mean for our teams? Well, that means that we now know what is going to happen in double game week 25 and what is going to happen in blank game week 29. The only thing we don't know is what I'm going to cover right here. So with Arsenal not making the final, there will be no second double-up fixture in game week 25 because Arsenal and Chelsea would have come into double game week 25. However, Arsenal did not win, so Arsenal-Chelsea stays in game week 29 and neither of those two teams are blanking. But Newcastle obviously won, and that means that their fixture with Crystal Palace will now be a blank game week 29 for those two teams. Now, Newcastle and Crystal Palace are not in Europe, and that means that because they advanced, Newcastle advanced, their fixture that was in game week 29, which is now blanking, will not be moved into double game week 25. We don't know exactly when it will be played, but the chances are that it's likely to be in game week 33, particularly if obviously Crystal Palace and Newcastle advance in the FA Cup. That's the only reason why it will be absorbed into a massive double game week 36. But realistically, at the moment, it's probably on track for a double game week 33. It'll be a small one, but it does mean that if you've got Isaac or a Murphy or a Gordon, potentially that could be a chance to play your triple captain if you didn't play it in game week 24 like I didn't because you played the assistant managership. So that now becomes a really valid option because Newcastle will double at some point in time. Now, with Liverpool making the Carabao Cup final, they will now blank in game week 29 along with Aston Villa, but that fixture has now created a double game week for both of those teams in game week 25, which is very big. And let's have a look at some of the assets that you may potentially want to look at for both teams. So we are going to look at the fixtures very quickly first off, though. So on Friday the 14th, which is Valentine's Day, potentially want to go on a date, go to the football if you're in Brighton. If you're a Chelsea fan, set up, see how the points go on that early Friday night fixture. Normally there's quite a lot of points in that, so Cole Palmer could be a really good shout for some points in this fixture. On the Saturday, the 15th for the second, we have Leicester, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Ipswich, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, Man City, Newcastle, Southampton, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brentford, and Crystal Palace versus Everton. Obviously have the first leg of the Aston Villa double there against Ipswich at home. Keep that in mind. And then on Sunday, with 1 day's less rest, Liverpool versus Spurs. Liverpool versus Wolves. Remember, Liverpool also play Everton midweek before this round of fixtures as well. So the fixtures are eventually going to catch up with Liverpool, I believe, and they are going to start putting in some tired performances. That's why I think the table bonus is definitely the way to go. Liverpool versus Wolves, obviously on the Sunday. Spurs versus Man United. I'm dreading that fixture already. And then on Wednesday the 19th will be the double fixture for Aston Villa versus Liverpool. It is at home to Aston Villa. And then obviously, as I said there, that fixture has been moved from game week 29. So it's been brought forward rather than what normally happens, being played after the blank. It's actually being played before the blank. Doesn't happen very often, that particular thing, but it is what it is. So what does it mean for Aston Villa's assets? It means that Aston Villa, as you can see there, the fixtures down the bottom, it'll be Ipswich at home and Liverpool at home 25. In 26, it's Chelsea at home, and Crystal Palace away in 27, and then Brentford away in 28, and then they blank in 29. So I've got the fixtures down there for the bottom. Obviously, the Liverpool one, they haven't actually added it to the game yet, which is why I've had to put it in that way. But the assets that I'm most interested in, look, I don't own any Aston Villa assets at all at the moment. So realistically, I'm going to talk you through the ones that I'm most interested in. Now, if you want a defender, it's probably Luca Dean. You never know if he's going to start every week, and the fact that he's got 2 games in a week, can't guarantee he's going to start, but potentially he may. Marlon is an interesting asset, particularly at 5.5 in the midfield. He's actually cheaper than Rodgers. He could be a shout if Watkins is actually out injured. We'll know hopefully a little bit more after this weekend. If Watkins is fit to play in the FA Cup, then I don't think it's that much of an issue. Morgan Rogers obviously is on 8 yellow cards. He's 2 away from a 2-game ban, provided he racks up another 2 yellow cards before game week 32, which is a significant problem because he'll then miss 2 games. However, of all the assets that are currently playing, I would back him in to deliver more points than the rest. But, this is a big but. If Marcus Rashford does a Jesse Lingard, like remember when Jesse Lingard went to West Ham from Man United and had that absolute baller of a 6 months where he was literally Lingardo and was banging in goals, banging in assists, and absolutely went off the deep end. I had him in my team for that because I loved Lingard as a player. I just couldn't believe he wasn't getting played at Man United. Marcus Rashford, I think, is capable of doing similar things. Now, if he gets his head down and wants to show Emery and Man United the player that he is, he could be one to watch. Now, if he starts on the weekend in the FA Cup, I think he now becomes an asset I'm willing potentially to even take a -8 for, because we'll get into my transfers later on, but he's definitely the pick of the Aston Villa players that if he doesn't start on the weekend, I'm not going to be bringing in any Aston Villa assets outside of Unai Emery, and we're going to talk about him in a second. But Marcus Rashford for me is the one that appeals the most. It's just something there that makes you think that he could be a fantastic option. And look, the fixtures for Villa aren't the best. The problem is if you bring them in for this double game week, you then have to waste transfers getting rid of them if you aren't going to play your free hit in game week 29. Now, I don't recommend playing your free hit in game week 29 because game week 34 is going to be a massive blank in comparison to game week 29. And my team's actually set up well to move a couple of assets out between now and 29. I just don't think it's a play that potentially I want to do. So on to Liverpool. We have Salah. Most people have Salah. You're probably still going to captain him. I would captain him again in game week 25. He's obviously got Wolves at home and then Aston Villa away. I would argue those 2 fixtures are better on paper than Bournemouth versus Everton. Obviously, he's got 2 goals currently at the moment, but I just think that potentially he might be someone that potentially will go to further on. And he's one that you're going to keep in your team. I bought him at like 12.7 million, I'm going to say. He's up to 13.7 mil now. There's no way I'm selling him on game week 29. So he's definitely going to be one of the players that I carry into my team through that blank game week, and I'm quite happy to have him in my team for the season. I think if you go without him and you sell him, it's just, it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me. Lots of people already have their 3 Liverpool assets as well. Like some people have Slot and they have the 2 players because they played the assistant managership in 24. If you had played the triple captain in 24 on Mo Salah, I would not be recommending wasting a transfer on getting rid of Slot. Getting rid of a Liverpool player for Arnie Slot. It makes no sense to me. The upside is not there with Slot, and we'll talk about that in a second with Emery. I just don't think that's the play for me. Now, lots of people have Cody Gakpo. I think that, again, against Wolves, and he's just scoring or assisting in literally every game at the moment. He looks brilliant. Alisson and Alexander-Arnold are probably pretty similar assets for me. I have them both in my team, and I'm more happy with Alisson, but I will have to sell him because I've got Fabianski on the bench prior to 29. So for me, he's got 4 weeks, maybe even 1. I might even waste a goalkeeper transfer on him next week, potentially, because obviously Man City away, Newcastle home. I don't know how many clean sheets I'm going to expect in there. Trent, overrated. He's in my team, but I can guarantee you that if he's not fit, he's not available for game week 25, he's gone. Like, I'll be very happy to show him the door. Luis Diaz, if you've got him, you probably hold him for this. And Canada, again, he could be an option, particularly if Trent doesn't get up as a cheaper defender in order to free up money for the rest of your team. Now, in terms of the assistant manager, we have Unai Emery versus Arne Slot. Now, I currently own David Moyes, who's 0.5, costs 0.5. I have the money in my bank after I've already made my transfer to get in Unai Emery for 0.8 mil. Now, I also have the money to get in Arne Slot for 1.5 if I get rid of Trent for a different defender. It could be a Hodgson, whatever it is. I just don't like the fact that Arne Slot is sitting there. I just don't think there's much upside. I mean, the Wolves at home fixture is a banker. You would argue that Ipswich at home fixture is a banker for Unai Emery. It was a bit like on the weekend where we had Leicester at home, Bournemouth away for Liverpool and obviously Moyes. Moyes got the banker. Slot obviously found it harder against... He did. He found it harder against Bournemouth. And the Everton... It was going to be really interesting to see how it plays out on Wednesday night next week. If Arne Slot somehow doesn't win that game, all of a sudden, Unai Emery's odds, and people are going to be looking at him going, that's the player I want. And look, lots of people that played triple captain in 24 probably already have their 3 Liverpool assets for game week 24. Realistically, it's not worth a -4 to bring in Slot over Emery. I think Emery with the 2 home games again, Ipswich at home, Liverpool at home, I think I want to take that on. Like for me, as I said, all season long, the table bonus is on Unai Emery's side. And Aston Villa are that kind of team that they do really well against the teams that are above them. Like last season, they beat all the top teams. Every chance that he could do Liverpool at Villa Park. Like absolutely, I can just see it. So for me, Ipswich at home, Liverpool at home looks amazing. 0.8 mil, 0.7 cheaper than Slot as well. He's got way more upside. I just really like Unai Emery. So like I can guarantee you my -4 is now going to be David Moyes to Unai Emery. I'm backing it in. Particularly if Marcus Rashford hits the ground running. I could see Marcus Rashford scoring a couple of goals against Liverpool because he likes playing against Liverpool. Like, I just love it. I just love it. I think that's something that everyone should be on board with. Arne Slot, I suppose if you've already got Arne Slot, you're not probably moving him to Unai Emery, but potentially you might be tempted if Slot actually loses out to Moyes on Wednesday night. It's just one of them ones you just kind of have to watch and see how it unfolds. So, blank game week 29. These are the confirmed fixtures now. It's a small game week. As you can see there, not many games. There's 8 games. So, Everton versus West Ham, Ipswich versus Nottingham Forest, Man City against Brighton looks pretty juicy. Haaland could be a good captain there if you've got him, or a Phil Foden. Southampton versus Wolves, Bournemouth versus Brentford. On the Sunday, it's Arsenal versus Chelsea, Fulham versus Spurs, and then Leicester against Man United. Now, Bruno Fernandes, that's why he's still on my team, because of that fixture there in blank game week. He gives it actually a very good captaincy shout in that particular week. Now, move to game week 25 there. As we can see, Aston Villa versus Liverpool. That will no longer be played in game week 29. So they'll blank. Those 2 teams will blank. Now, as you can see down the bottom, Newcastle versus Crystal Palace. That game is yet to be rescheduled. As I said, the most likely date will be game week 33, which will create a small double for Newcastle and Crystal Palace, but could also be absorbed into a bumper double game week 36. So yeah, that's what you need to be planning for now. That's 4 game weeks away. Like there's a lot of things to factor in between now and then. And I suppose now it's time to look at the the Crystal Palace and Newcastle assets that potentially might blank in these game weeks. So we're going to start with Crystal Palace. I love these assets. I love all of them. I have none of them in my team. Munoz and Mateta absolutely destroyed my rank and my team on the weekend. I'm still very salty about how that game went down. I expected Man United to be much better. I expected Ahmad and Bruno to get me more than 3 points combined. I can tell you that much. I did not expect Mateta and Munoz to get 24 combined. Like, it's insane. They've been super good. Mateta's been brilliant. He's had one off week in like the last 5, I think now. He's returned 4 of the last 5. It's brilliant. Eze, obviously, lots of people own him as well. Ismail Assar, lots of people are starting to move him for a Bournemouth midfielder, which makes a lot of sense, particularly with Southampton at home for Bournemouth this week. Munoz obviously looks really good as well. I don't mind him, 4.8 mil. He's just great. Like, he's such a good defender. I would love to have him in my team, and then potentially I will bring him in on wildcard and 30. I can't justify bringing any of these assets in between there. And lots of people, quite a few people actually have Dean Henderson in goal as well as a cheaper goalkeeper. And you can see the next 4 fixtures: 25, Everton at home, Fulham away in 26, Aston Villa at home in 27, and Ipswich away in 28. Like, an amazing run of fixtures for the next 4 weeks prior to their blank, which makes it really annoying. The one thing I will say is that Crystal Palace in game week 33, if the double goes there, they will have table bonus on both games. So if you haven't played your assistant manager chip yet, they'll have Newcastle United, and I think from memory they have like Chelsea or some other team that's significantly higher up in the table that's likely to still be higher up in the table. So if you're a real, like, Oliver Glasner could pull out a 50-point, like, no, not 50-point, like maybe, yeah, he could realistically pull out a 50-point 1 week play in game week 33 if you've got the assistant manager chip and you haven't already played it yet. So if you haven't already played it, I'd potentially be looking at that game week when Newcastle play Crystal Palace. I really feel like Crystal Palace could do something. They do have to go to Newcastle to do it, which makes it slightly harder. But Crystal Palace's away record for the last 8 games has been flawless. Like, they haven't lost, I think, now in the last 7 or 8 away games. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. However, I wouldn't be buying any of their assets. Like, this week, we shouldn't be focusing on Crystal Palace, even though they've got Everton at home, because there's the Bournemouth-Southampton game and Bournemouth's amazing run. And we've obviously got the double game week between Aston Villa and Liverpool. You really want to cover yourself for those assets. I wouldn't be buying Crystal Palace because you then have to sell them again unless you are going to free hit 29. So that's where it does get a little bit harder to justify. In terms of the Newcastle assets, well, these are the 4 most popular. And look, Isaac and Hall, I have so much money invested in. Like, I bought Isaac at 8.4 mil. He's now 9.5. Like, if I sold him now, I'd only get 8.9 mil. He would have to go up to 9.6 for me to sell him for 9. Realistically, I think he's just a hold for me. And we'll talk about his form in a second as well. Hall, ditto. Like, I've got my team is really good with defenders. I can literally rotate him out of the team for the time I've got him. I just can't justify selling him. Like, 4.4 mil. Newcastle are going to have a very good run after the Carabao Cup final as well. I think for me, those two, particularly if you own both of them and you've got value tied up in them, they're probably holds. So for me, it's Isaac up front, Hall in the defence, Salah in the midfield. Those are going to be my 3 that I'm going to be holding between now and 29. I think that's definitely the play. Murphy, lots of people have him, but it's easy to swap him for like a Dango or another cheap Bournemouth midfielder. I think 100% I'll be selling him between now and 29. And Anthony Gordon, lots of people sold him last game week. I definitely think that he's definitely a sell. You can get to a Brian and Buemo. You can even get to a Bruno Fernandes for his decent run of fixtures between now and 29. So I really like them. As you can see down the bottom, they have that amazing game against West Ham United in 28. But the next 3 weeks, Man City away, Nottingham Forest at home, Liverpool away, are not good fixtures for Newcastle, which just makes them, that bit harder to hold, particularly for Gordon and Murphy. I think the other 2, if you've got value, as I said, tied up, I would be definitely rolling with them and just hoping for the best. Now, lastly, onto my team. What does it look like? So I've already made my 1 free transfer. I did have Ahmad, and Clivert is now in for Ahmad. That did cost me 0.4 on my budget that I had in. I've still got enough money to get rid of Moyes, which will 100% be happening between now and the deadline. Obviously, managers' prices do not rise, so I'm not worried about making it just yet. I will definitely make it, though. But I am waiting to see what happens with Trent Alexander-Arnold. So Trent is currently yellow flagged. Obviously, there's a lot of time between now and game week 25, and we will know more after the FA Cup. He's not going to play in the FA Cup, 100%. They've got Plymouth, Argyle, easy game. Roll out the reserves, roll out the 18s, and they still win that game. The Everton game is where I want to see. If he plays in the Everton game, that will mean that he'll be staying in my team, and it will just be 100% Moyes out and Emery in, because obviously I've got the 3 Liverpool. The only way that it wouldn't happen is if Trent is missing and likely to miss game week 25. I may just move him out for another player. Then it opens up the manager to both Emery and Slot. I just can't justify spending 1.5 on Slot with no table bonus against Aston Villa, who will have the table bonus, and they have the banker fixture as well. Like, they're both playing teams in the bottom 4 in their first game. Like, you would expect 2 wins, potentially lots of goals in both of them. Clean sheets potentially even as well. And then they play each other. And I just feel like Aston Villa will be really up for it. Like, because they won't have European football midweek, so they won't have that kind of hangover. So that's how my team's looking at the moment. Hopefully it's been helpful. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. But it is now starting to think about the double game week 25. Most certainly, it's right in front of us. Next weekend is the deadline. And then obviously blank game week 29. That is the hard one. That's the one that people would need to really start thinking about. So as you can see in my team, I've got Becca, Alexander-Arnold. Those 2 players are the ones that are going to be leaving. So then that means Becca, I'm not sure which goalkeeper I'm going to go to. I have to weigh up the fixtures of what I think and who realistically might keep a clean sheet. It could be that I go to Matt Sells from Nottingham Forest and triple up on them. I'm not sure I like that play though. And it is a really difficult one. Potentially I could go to Pickford a week later or 2 weeks later. I'm not sure. That is also another move. But from game week 30, the fixtures are horrible for Everton. So I really don't know where I'm going to go with the goalkeeper. In terms of defender, there's plenty of decent options. I might even go back to Jurrien Timber from Arsenal. Like, there's plenty of really good options. I could go to Hodgson from Bournemouth and triple up on Bournemouth for their amazing run of fixtures as well. Yeah, and then obviously I'll keep Isaac, I'll keep Salah, and I'll keep Hall. Those will be my 3. But as you can see, my team has everyone is playing, except obviously Fabianski. So that makes my decision a lot easier in terms of what I'm going to do. But yeah, so I am probably looking at a -4, only a -4 this week in order to change my manager, because I did want Clivert in instead of Ahmad. I really want to attack that Southampton fixture. I'm not too worried about owning Aston Villa assets outside of Unai Emery. Except, as I said, if Marcus Rashford pops off. Now, if Trent's fit and Rashford pops off, I could swap out Bruno for Rashford and take a -8 that way. Or as I said, Trent missing out, that I could take a -8 to move him as well. But we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not 100% sure which way I'm going to go. Me and Alan are actually going to do a live pod tomorrow. So if you've got time, it's going to be slated for the normal UK deadline time. So it'll be 9 a.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Australian Western time. So if you've got nothing to do on a Saturday and you just want to watch some FA Cup, listen to us talk about fantasy and how his team's going in game week 24 and what his plans are for double game week 25 and blank game week 29. Make sure you tune in. We'll be there live from 9 a.m. UK time tomorrow. And before you go, please smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching. That's been the D Unit.